There is no one I know who has published a book that has not felt some fear, has not been scared as a part of their journey in writing and sharing their book with the world. In today's episode of The Written Compass, we're going to explore, why does writing feel so scary? What is up with that? I am so excited you are here, so let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Written Compass. While this episode will drop after Halloween, I'm recording it on Halloween. So I'm going to honor the spirit of the day, and I'm going to talk about and explore the question, why does writing feel so scary sometimes for so many people? And I know this to be true because I've supported hundreds and hundreds of people over the years, from elementary kids all the way through to grown adults in writing their books. And everyone has some sort of fear, including myself, that shows up around writing. And so I thought it'd be fitting to kind of talk about that today. And I think in order to kind of dive in and get started, I think there's actually some more questions that show up underneath this question of, why does writing feel so scary sometimes? So I think one is to explore, what do we even mean by writing? Like, what is writing? I think we need to kind of operate from a common understanding. So for me, I am talking about, in general, anytime you are communicating something to someone in a written format. So that's broad enough to include any kind of digital, social media, heck, even text messaging type of situations, emails, all the way through to blog posts, article writing, to writing your book. Okay, anything that is trying to communicate something using the written word. And then that also answers the question of kind of like, what kind of writing are we talking about here? And then the other question that sort of shows up is around who is reading this writing? So oftentimes people's fears might be connected to some of these sub questions. So for instance, somebody might feel perfectly fine crafting a text message to a friend, but if they're asked to craft an email, to maybe pitch an idea to their boss, or to share with their audience if they're a business owner and they're trying to create newsletters, or to start a chapter in their book, lots of different things show up. So it's interesting to notice what kind of writing situations, who the audience is, when does this fear get kicked up? So to start to feel into when you might feel this fear and just start to get to know it a little bit more I want to give you a little, imagine this. So imagine you're asked to write something, and I want you to fill in the blank with anything that would make sense for your job, your career, or something you might typically need to or want to write. Now, what if I said, I need that writing, whatever you decide on, by the end of the week, or, in 4 to 5 days? I gave you a very clear deadline. I want you to take a moment, just really take that scenario in and notice what shows up. What are the thoughts that immediately come to the surface? What do you notice in your body? What starts to happen? And then I want you to think about, like, what would you do next? So part of why this fear shows up, one, I want you to realize, like, it is so very normal. When we do something that maybe we're not used to, or puts us in a different context or a different situation than we've been accustomed to, aka we step outside of, or what feels like outside of, our comfort zone, then fear is going to show up. It is a very natural human response. We are designed for safety, and we are designed for homeostasis. And so your body is actually trying to support you. So writing feels scary because it's normal for that feeling to show up. Now, I partially think writing feels so scary because it does feel like it's outside of our comfort zone. And I've talked many times on this podcast how school and well-intentioned people in our family, in our friend groups, or whatever may be, have shaped our understanding of what writing is, what counts as writing, and who we are as writers, if we even remotely consider ourselves that. So all of those things are coming together when we are choosing to take on a writing task of some sort, or we simply need to create some writing for some specific situation, as I tried to kind of talk you through in that imagine this situation and scenario. So the fear is very normal because writing often feels like something outside of our comfort zone. And the reason it feels like it's outside of our comfort zone is because of how we learned writing, what our self-efficacy and beliefs are about ourselves when we go to write. Okay, so just recognize that all of that is showing up. And even as I'm talking, I want you to pay attention. Again, I'm a body mind coach. I use embodiment in my writing and coaching that I do around writing. So again, I want you to keep noticing what is showing up in your body. Where do you feel it in your body? And this is something you can tap into when that fear shows up. So one thing to support you around this fear that's very much going to show up is to realize it's so normal. And we almost come in our writing programs when we're working with our clients, we almost really come to expect the fear and to kind of put our little arm around it and go, welcome, buddy. I knew you were going to show up. I wasn't sure when, and here you are. Welcome. Okay. So one thing is to kind of normalize the fear and know that it's going to be a part of the process no matter what. When I kind of asked some people and talked about like what makes writing feel so scary, one thing that showed up is this sense of audience, which we talked about a lot in the podcast as well, and how sometimes writing without considering the audience can be beneficial. It can help support you past this fear that sometimes shows up. But the possibility of being critiqued, the possibility of being misunderstood when we are sharing our words and we are putting it out there for others to potentially respond to, especially in spaces where a response is a part of the rhetorical situation or the setup. So a social media post, well, we have a space to leave comments or to heart and like something. We have a way people can share it, right? So a response is built into that genre of writing. Same thing with an email. And I would argue same thing with a book. It's often just a little less fluid and dialogical, meaning it's not a super easy thing to respond to, but people certainly respond to books, right? They write reviews, they can send messages to the author, they can post about it themselves and talk about the book, right? So this idea of someone on the outside of us giving us feedback or responding to the things that were on the inside that we suddenly put on the outside in writing, whew, I even got breathless as I was sharing it. It's definitely easy to see how some fear can show up. One thing that, as I was asking people about this, our clients and my team and on social media, was writing is an extension of self. And so there's this vulnerability that happens. Again, we're taking something that up until that moment has been on the inside of us, or is this really juicy kind of blurry line of I'm thinking of something, and as I start to write it down, it kind of changes and morphs into something else. That's a really interesting and very expressive of self kind of process. And there's a vulnerability when we put anything that's from the inside or feels like an expression of ourselves onto the outside. Right. So again, there's that fear of being critiqued or misunderstood, but it's also just the fear of the unknown that can show up in that vulnerability. I don't know what's going to happen when I put this out there. I don't know what I think about this or what I want to do with this. Right. So one around the whole concept of why does writing feel so scary is almost my response would be it's supposed to. It's not something that we necessarily do all the time. And if you're not someone who has flexed that muscle a lot, it's normal for it to feel scary. So I just want you to know that you're not alone, and that if writing feels scary to you or some fear shows up, that is totally part of the process. What I would love to encourage you to do is to explore what might be any meaning that you're making around the fear that shows up. A lot of times when our clients say yes to themselves and say yes to writing their book, they get excited. And then as soon as they start to write things down, get going, maybe they start to tell a person or two, maybe they just have, our first call together, and all of a sudden, this fear shows up and they're like, wait a minute, and the meaning they make is maybe I'm not supposed to do this, right? Because the fear is there. And we really coach our clients. This is why us coaching the writer is so important as much as the writing, is we really get to decide, well, what are you making this? Okay, fear is showing up. Great. Way to recognize it. What are we making that mean right now? And is that true? Right? So really explore the meaning that you might be making around the fear that is showing up. You can explore where the fear comes from. So recognizing, hey, I've had some past or history where someone has told me the way I speak, the way I write, or anything like that is not up to par or not what it should be. Like really just recognizing that. But I want you to know it's not necessary to know the why behind everything in order to continue forward and trust yourself and keep writing, even in spite of and along with the fear. And then really diving deep into what is really going on when we get scared and nervous about our writing, really feeling that, allowing yourself to feel it, even if it's uncomfortable. That is really going to support you in the fear versus trying to ignore it or doing the polar opposite and trying to make it more than what it actually is. So in summary, fear is so normal in any kind of process where you are stepping outside of, right on the edge of your comfort zone. And writing is often like that for a lot of people. And it's actually super powerful when you lean in, get to know, put your arm around that fear, those scary things, those nervous times, and really get to know yourself and what is showing up so that it can actually, you see that it's actually trying to support you, not deter you from what it is you're trying to do, from putting your words out into the world. So I'm curious, what is so scary to you about writing? What is the scariest part maybe of your writing process? And how do you want to move forward as you know this fear is going to be a part of your journey? How do you want to move forward from here? Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Written Compass. If you are enjoying this content, do me a favor and go and review the podcast. This allows me to share and get these messages out to the people who really need them, who we want to read their books in the future. You can also go and share your thoughts and tag me at @ShaynaHartman_ on Instagram. Again, this is just a way for us to get connected and share the writing love. And if you know that you are ready to write your book, that message that's been burning inside of you for a long time, then I want to talk to you. My team and I want to talk to you. Head on over to ShaynaHartman.com and click Work with Us. From there, you'll see an application to explore and see if writing your book is your next best step.